So you're looking to start your home server for the first time, but you don't really know what to do to start. A great place to begin is to look at the hardware and to figure out a plan for your home server. My name is Tenovan, and welcome to my channel, Tenovan Tech. Here I'm going to be talking about the different ways that you can look at hardware and to figure out what it is that you would want to start with for your home server. For those of you who are here just for a short amount of time, long story short is start with something small. If you have no idea how to use Linux or other things, a great place to start is just with a small virtual machine on your own computer or by ordering a Raspberry Pi and beginning your work with that. So where should you start out? In my opinion, I think the best place to start out is actually getting a Raspberry Pi. And let me tell you a few reasons why. First off, they're still relatively cheap. They are a little bit more expensive than they used to be, but there are newer models of Raspberry Pi that are stronger than the ones that I started out with. So you can actually have them last for longer. And in a general sense, they're also pretty small, lightweight, and pretty energy efficient. And even when you find yourself upgrading your home server later, you can still use your old Raspberry Pi as either a new part of the cluster for your bigger home server, or you can keep it on the side as a little device for you to experiment and test your skills with so you can continue getting better and continue having fun trying new things. But there is one thing you'll need to consider when it comes to having a Raspberry Pi. Most of them do not come with a case. In my case, the favorite case I've ever tried was the Argon 40. Now this case is incredibly powerful and incredibly sleek looking. It has an extra little chip on the inside of the case that you can plug into the side of the Raspberry Pi that will route all of the ports out the back. So you have this really nice and sleek looking design. The very top of it is just all metal and it connects directly to the CPU heatsink. So that top plate is really great for just natural and passive cooling. It even has a built-in fan in there and comes with a little fan script that you can install on your Raspberry Pi. So when it does get hot, it can turn on that fan to actually have active cooling on top of it. For me, this case has worked flawlessly in keeping my Raspberry Pis cool, even when I run them at really intense processing things such as the Plex Media server. It still slowed down, but it didn't get too hot. And even now when I'm trying new things with it, I've put it on load for 90% CPU or higher. I generally don't see the temperature of the CPU go much higher than 55 degrees Celsius. And to me, that's a win. And the Argon 40 actually has a second version of the case where it has a secondary bottom plate that you can swap out for. It has an extra slot for an M2 that you can stick into there, just a little SATA SSD drive, and it will connect up to the back of your Raspberry Pi using a USB to USB little clip there. And when you plug that in, it will give you the ability to have extra storage for your Raspberry Pi all within the same case. So you don't have to carry around an external SSD just to get that extra oomph of storage. For me, this has been awesome because I'm trying out new things with building databases and vector databases so I can figure out how things work with AI, and having that little bit of extra space does help a ton for me. But let's say because of my explanation using of Raspberry Pi with a Plex Media server, you're like, okay, I know for sure that's not going to be enough power for me. Well, you don't need to do what I need to do. You could go to university and go and pick up a used computer from their surplus stores, but they're not always selling them. And you may not really need to today anyways. For the most part, nowadays computers are being made more powerful and smaller. So you can easily go out online and find a mini computer online that's probably even more powerful than the server that I have here. I personally plan on also upgrading my own home server with a mini PC, but the one I've got my eyes on is the one that Nvidia just announced. They have just recently announced their project Digits. This is a mini supercomputer that has 128 gigabytes of unified memory. What this means is that the CPU and the graphics card share the same memory, which makes it perfect for hosting your own local AI that you can now use in place of bigger alternatives like OpenAI, so you don't have to pay them continuously. You can run this locally on your own machine, keep all of your data local, and you can run various different automations and projects on top of it. And that's something that I am personally very excited for. But what if that isn't enough? As you build up your skills and your home server dreams, it's natural that you're going to want to increase your compute power or your machines so that it can handle all the new things you're trying out. As the years goes on, there's going to be more open source software that you're going to be able to try out that can replace paid software solutions you use regularly every day today. In this case, you're going to want to try going for high-end rack-mounted servers or tower PCs that have consumer-level hardware that can do just about anything you can dream of. However, for me at the moment, that's a little bit overkill. Hopefully I can get there someday, but right now I'm just working on the small things, and that's what you should do too. If you're beginning for the very first time, try to take it small. If you go too big at first, you're going to find yourself overwhelmed and confused, and you might just stop altogether. If you really want to commit to building your own home server, make sure to take it small and one step at a time. I started out with getting a Raspberry Pi 3B. It's several years old. It was one of the smaller models, only I think 2 gigabytes of RAM. And I only intended to really use it to set up a game emulator. And that's actually what I still use it for today. But I eventually wanted to use a Raspberry Pi for something more. So I ended up getting another Raspberry Pi, but this one was a Raspberry Pi 4. And this is the one where I wanted to try and set up a Plex media server to see if I can have it run something immediate for me. It can still run my own videos and even music. But it didn't turn out so well. Now, the music had worked just fine. The videos, however, is where it struggled. The Raspberry Pi 4 didn't have enough power for my needs. I had my videos set up in such a way that they were just huge in size, and the subtitles for them were just in a text format, not in an image format. And so the Raspberry Pi needed to do a bunch of processing as it was serving up the videos to me. That's called transcoding. And most of the time, it just overheated and it was too slow and the video was choppy and I couldn't watch it. And so for me, I was a great start for me with my Raspberry Pi. However, I needed a little bit of an upgrade. The very next step that I had taken is I went to my university surplus store and looked around, and they had some old computers they were selling for really cheap. I was able to pick up a Dell Optiplex 5050 for only $120. It felt like a steal at the time. I actually have no idea how much that's worth on a regular basis. However, that suited my needs just fine. It had a lot more power than just a regular Raspberry Pi, it having an Intel i5 in there. In the long story short, your home servers don't need to have a lot of power if you don't plan on having an outrageous huge amounts of processing power. Even with the Plex media server that had to do transcoding for the file sizes and adding subtitles, this was able to handle it just fine. So to recap, if you are a beginner or you're looking for a budget-conscious solution, start with the Raspberry Pi. If you need a little bit more power, but you still want a little compact frame, try looking for some mini PCs or perhaps waiting for Nvidia's Project Digits or something similar. And if you're in for an all-in full-scale lab, invest in some refurbished enterprise gear and get your first server rack and get it going. So whether you're just starting with the Raspberry Pi or a dream of a full-fledged server rack, the key is just to start. Just build something, be creative, try new things. You'll love what you're going to find. And hey, if you're already running a home lab, tell me about it in the comments. What are you running for your hardware? What has been your experience so far? I'd like to hear about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips on home servers.